Hi, I'm Pete Lucina, the Gadget Guy. Do you ever feel that there's just too much choice when selecting a lens for your digital SLR? A good way to help you decide is to first consider what type of photos you're likely to be taking, and then make your lens choice based on these criteria. Are your photos extreme close-ups, landscapes, travel, portraits, architecture, or a mixture of these? For some people, flexibility is the key. For others, it's more specialty areas. Once you've made this decision, there are a few important factors to consider to make sure you choose the right lens to suit your digital SLR camera. One of the most important things to think about when choosing a lens is the field of view or angle and the viewpoint that it offers you, which relates to the lens's focal length. Another important question to ask is, do you want a fixed focal length lens or a zoom lens? You'll also need to consider the range of f-stops or apertures a lens has. You may hear this referred to as the speed of a lens. An extremely important aspect of all photography related to lens speed is the concept of depth of field. This refers to the areas of the photograph both in front and behind the main focus point, which remain sharp or in focus. The depth of field is affected by various camera settings such as the aperture, subject distance, focal length of the lens, and the camera's sensor format. Generally, the depth of field is adjusted by varying the aperture. A larger aperture or smaller f number, for example, f2, results in a shallow depth of field, so anything behind or in front of the main focus point will appear blurred. A smaller aperture setting or larger f number, so for example f16, will have a greater depth of field. Objects within a certain range behind or in front of the main focus point will appear sharp. You can also change the depth of field by moving the camera in relation to the subject. Reducing the distance will reduce the depth of field, while moving the camera away from the subject will increase the depth of field. Using lenses of different focal lengths is another way to manipulate depth of field. A lens with a shorter focal length produces images with a greater depth of field. For instance, a 28mm lens at f5.6 produces images with a greater depth of field than a 70mm lens at the same aperture. Lens perspective is another photographic element that needs to be considered when assessing the right lens for your digital SLR. If you photograph a subject with a tele lens and want it to have the same size when photographing it with a wide-angle lens, you have to move closer to the subject. Because this causes the perspective to change, lenses with different focal lengths are said to have a different perspective. So let me demonstrate. Perspective can also cause geometric distortion, which results in changes in the shape of the subject in an image. Two common examples are barrel and keystone distortions. Barrel distortion is unavoidable in super wide-angle or fisheye lenses. Keystone distortion is usually not strictly a lens defect, but caused by not keeping the film plane parallel to the subject. For example, pointing the camera upwards to shoot a tall building. Understanding field of view, perspective, and focal length will help you make the right lens choice. Camera lenses are broadly grouped into four categories: wide angle, standard, telephoto, and macro, according to their focal lengths. Any lens can be used for any subject, and the choice of a lens's focal length and the perspective that it offers depends on what you want to communicate through your image. Here's a rough guide. For landscapes and interiors, a focal length of around 35mm is mostly used. For portraits, 50 to 100mm is common. For sports, 100 to 400mm is usual, and 300mm or higher is most often used for wildlife and certain sports shots. Now, a thing or two about prime and zoom lenses. There are arguments for and against both, but a prime lens is a lens that has one focal length and cannot zoom in or out. These are available in most focal lengths, ranging from wide angle to telephoto. A zoom lens, on the other hand, has a range of focal lengths in the one lens. As a rule of thumb, prime lenses offer better image quality than zoom lenses because they excel at the focal length they're designed for and have the ability to produce high quality, clean, sharp and precise shots. You can always tell a prime lens because the focal length is expressed as a single number, for example 1635 or 400 millimeters. If you want to capture photos of varying focal lengths, such as landscapes, interiors, portraits or sports shots, a zoom lens is probably your best choice because it offers tremendous flexibility. Both Canon and Nikon's 18 to 200 millimeter lenses are great choices for covering a range of focal lengths. Okay, let's now talk about aperture or lens speed. A lens's aperture can vary between large or small. The size of the aperture will directly affect the depth of field in a photo. Larger aperture lenses allow more light in, but there is less depth of field in the resulting photo, while smaller apertures allow for less light to hit the image sensor, resulting in a deeper depth of field. Now, there's a trick to this. An aperture size is allocated a number called an f-stop, but it works in reverse. The smaller the number, the bigger the aperture. The larger the number, the smaller the aperture. There are other features available in lenses to help you take better photos, including image stabilization or vibration reduction. The way this technology works is to reduce the amount of lens shake that comes with hand-holding a camera in low light situations. Hopefully, this has helped you to decide the lens that's best for you and your photographic needs. However, there's a lot more to know about lens technology and choosing the most appropriate lens.